have you ever vaguely wanted to be a crime and puzzle-solving train conductor?
Whoa, what?
Yeah, that's a legitimate thing, apparently. You get a conductor hat and everything, and you have your own Victorian-era steam train to do it with.
You know, it makes sense. It makes sense. I've never considered doing it, but that's just because I figured that there's not a whole lot of attrition.
In the steam locomotion? Steam locomotion, that's funny. Hey guys, I'm Crypto Spook.
And this is Moriarty.
And today we are bringing you Conductor, which is a VR puzzle game.
This is by the same people who made Abode, which was another escape the room type of game, but it was a well done escape the room type of game. And I have high hopes for this one.
You should. You know, I just realized that I made a very critical mistake there. I left the train, the train in, like, the go position. I was like, go full speed ahead, and then I just hopped out and unhitched it. My train should have just gone flying down the tracks without me. But it did not, so that's good, I guess.
So it's still an escape the room, though.
It is an escape the world. I don't know that I would call it an escape the room, but I guess it is. Maybe it's a mobile escape the room. I don't know. I think we're being a bit too broad with the definition of what is and is not an escape the room these days.
I mean, it's still in that genre. It's difficult because there's so many of them on Steam. There really are. The VR...
It's a puzzle game.
Yeah, but the VR is kind of, I don't know, oversaturated with this style of game at this point. And I really appreciate the fact that these developers are starting to make games that aren't just, here's a room, go ahead and do it. They're really starting to take more advantage of how we have access to room scale and things. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? I feel like I'm making sense, but at the same time...
That makes a little bit of sense, yeah. You're saying instead of just, escaping a room and they only have to program one room, now they're starting to try and branch out and create worlds and an experience and an objective for you to do while you're solving the puzzles. They're making these games bigger and better, which I totally and wholeheartedly agree with.
Yeah, I mean, it's still an escape the room. You're just moving the room, and there's more to look at. There's things happening off to the sides. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I would say you're totally right.
And it really, just for me, makes it better?
Well, of course it makes the game better when there's more to the game than just sitting in a room solving puzzles. I mean, how hard is it to solve a puzzle when you know that all the answers are in one place?
That's true. So tell me about this one specifically. You're on a train, the train moves forward, you have to do stuff, you can teleport around and, change things.
So apparently the Overcorp people, this corporation called Overcorp, apparently, I'm guessing that you were the person that was in the back of this buggy that they're trying to chase down right now. And you got out and you just stole a train. That is my guess. That is what happened here.
I would steal a train if I were on the run.
Would you? I don't blame you. I would absolutely steal a train. Now, I did have a couple issues with this game. One, there's only one locomotion system, and that's teleportation. I'm not a huge fan of teleportation. It works, but it's not exactly my preferred method. I know a lot of people like it, but for me, it's just not that great. And also, I could not access the menu. I couldn't do anything in the menu whatsoever. It just wouldn't let me interact with it, which is a huge shame because the other problem I had was the darkness in the game. Now, maybe that's an intentionally built-in part of the game that you have to manage, but I couldn't find any way to make a light source other than just getting a match, which goes out after about 7 seconds. Trying to solve puzzles or even navigate your way around in pitch black with just a teeny little match is tantamount to being impossible.
I remember that Abode was slightly dark as well, but...
Yeah, I think you're right. Maybe we need to tell their lead developer to turn his gamma down.
Well, you had actually in that game said that you enjoyed the darkness because of their use of light.
Well, I mean, they did a good job using the light here. There just wasn't enough of it. So, for instance, the light you have on your train puts out a decent amount of light, and you can use it for seeing, but it's not that great due to the fact that you can't back the train up. If you go past the puzzle you're trying to solve, you can't go backwards.
Which means you have no light.
Yep, which means you have no light. Which means you're trying to solve puzzles with a match, and probably ostensibly burning yourself pretty badly in the process.
It does look pretty cool, though.
And when's the last time you used a kitchen match?
That's true. I can't remember the last time I used a match to light anything, so good point. Good job. Still, it looks pretty neat, and I like the aesthetic of everything. I'm a big fan of games that are taking a little bit of a cartoony approach to VR because I feel like
It's much easier to render.
I feel like trying to be super realistic in VR is a failing endeavor. It ends up just being kind of meh.
Yeah, you're right, because the graphics cards just aren't there yet.
Not to render in VR and on... No, it's just not there yet. That being said, these cartoony ones with the nice flat planes and solid colors look really good even in the low resolution that VR is.
I will totally agree with you there. So there's a little bit of apprehension, as there is any time when you're in VR and you're completely alone. I mean, I know that's not totally weird, but think about this. You're a train driver just, meandering along through the countryside and pitch black and there's nobody around for hundreds of miles and you just never exactly know what's going to happen.
I mean, there are people around. They're your neighbors.
Well, I mean in the VR world.
I just wanted to clarify.
It's a mix of both, I also live alone.
Yes. One day you'll take off your headset and there will be somebody sitting there.
And then I will probably attempt to murder them.
So if you were to take your train, could you run through the puzzles?
I don't know. I didn't try.
Like, at full speed, could you just keep going?
Well, maybe? I don't think so. I think you'd probably derail and die or something. I didn't try, though.
It's worth a try. I feel like that's something that should be tried immediately, is to break the game.
Yeah, I guess I probably should have tried to ram that car back there.
That's
But it just seemed like a terrible idea.
what I would do.
I mean, there's not really a seat or anything. I'm just kind of standing here. I would be, decapitated pretty badly, I imagine.
Nah.
So this is the post-industrial era, and I think they got the atmosphere port for it pretty well, because I couldn't solve this puzzle because it was too dark.
Well, you want to get it in the middle of those things, obviously.
Yeah, no, that was easy to do. I tried a whole bunch of different ways to do it, and also the controls here were way too sensitive. It was hard, because my controller didn't lock on to the wheels when I was trying to turn them, it just didn't work right, It wound up, turning one a little bit when I was trying to use the other one, so you need to implement something here that locks my controller onto the one that I clicked.
Yeah.
So that no matter where my hand goes, I'm still turning that same wheel.
Controls are so funny in VR because it needs to be so flexible all the time. You need to be able to hold things with a trigger or a grip when you need to do that, but at the same time, you need to be able to press a trigger or a grip and not have to hold them anymore to hold items. You need to be able to have fine-tuning, but you also need to be able to move your hands around and not be particularly fine. It's so incredibly strange how VR has worked because we expect it to work like our hands, and they just haven't got there yet. I really believe that the Vive Touch controllers, the Vive 2 controllers, whatever they're going to end up calling them, I really believe
will absolutely unlock the real potential of Vive.
that really will. You've got things like Leap Motion, but you're going to spend an extra $200 and go through an incredibly cumbersome setup to play an extra 10 games that support Leap Motion? No, you're not going to do that. But if you can spend $200 and get 2 new controllers that will be guaranteed to work with your Vive, and there's no real setup, and it's better, absolutely I can see that becoming something that the market's willing to do, which means that we'll be able to use these fine-tuned motor controls, and we'll be able to use more buttons and things, and use our hands in ways that actually are hand-like.
And I absolutely won't mind holding to hold an object, because it'll probably come with a much better quote-unquote grip button.
The grips on the Vive controllers are atrocious. They're the worst part of the entire controller.
I think they're made for people with smaller hands. I think that's the issue.
I feel like when they designed the grip buttons on the controllers, they expected you to change your hands and hold it like a bat further down and not be near the trigger or the other buttons. I just would never hold it that way. But I feel like that's the only possible way that they could have done that. Did you have fun?
I did have fun. I had a little bit of trouble beating some of the puzzles because of the darkness and the inability to get into an options menu where I could have hopefully, increase the gamma or the brightness of the game to a level where I could actually see something. But, I mean, as it is, I can't really say that I want to go back and play more because it's just too hard to see anything, you know?
Now, keeping in mind, of course, that you're playing this before the game actually has been released.
I absolutely expect them to fix all of these issues and probably give you a lantern or allow you to detach the lantern from your train. It would not surprise me if you could do that.
Or a gamma in your settings. Obviously, darkness is part of the environment and the atmosphere.
You don't want it to be too bright.
Yeah, you don't want it to be too bright, because if it's too bright, it ruins the atmosphere. And I feel like in VR, immersion is pretty freaking important, man.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it can't be so dark that you can't see anything. So something there, maybe they do it like in the movies where you're looking, there's a slight cone of light.
Or just let me take the
lantern with you, or put it on your belt.
Let me take the lantern off of the train with me. It's got a light on the train, which I didn't have to light, so I don't understand. Are you telling me that we do have light bulbs, but couldn't afford 2 for this train?
Good point, my friend. Though, really, as long as it's something, even if it's part of the puzzle and it's difficult to do, I'm okay with that. I mean, if it's one of those things where, yeah, you can take something off of the train and stick it onto your belt, but you have to pull it up to actually see anything, that's fine. You know? As long as the option is there.
Yeah, the option.
I like that I said that while you're trying to get into options. The option really is there.
Supposedly. And, I mean, the problem is it's just literally so dark that I could not see a thing. You know, I'm over here in the dark and I'm like, I got nothing. I can't see anything.
Oh, it's pretty funny, though. This game looks really neat, though. And I like the graphics. I'm a fan of this company so far. They've made really good escape rooms. Their puzzles have always been pretty smart, witty, and they're very interesting. Their worlds are cool, and the games are fun. They're never the type of game that you feel like you have been taken advantage of. And there are certainly escape the room games where you'll play them and go, man, that wasn't worth my money, but it took me 4 hours to complete the single puzzle because it was terribly broken. So I can't get my money back. Like, that happens.
That's definitely a tactic, you know?
Yeah, and the fact that Steam seems to use your install time as part of your 2 hours is pretty messed up as well.
Now, where do you fall on that line? Are you okay with people doing, if you beat the game in under 2 hours, you don't mind returning it?
I would never do that.
I wouldn't either.
But, I mean, I'm glad that Steam has a refund feature, because I have absolutely refunded games.
I've definitely refunded games as well. Very few. I feel like if I was interested enough in a game to actually buy it and pay for it, then the developer probably deserves my money in some way, shape, or form.
I did so many refunds when the Vive came out because I had no idea what kind of games I liked. Most of the games that were out were not actually games. They were $35 tech demos. And so what I found myself doing... So when the Vive came out, I actually found that I'd probably refunded 90% of the games I've refunded. Was in that 1 month after the Vive came out. I didn't know what games I liked. I didn't know what games were good. Most of the games weren't good. The really good games were $65, and they were good tech demos, but they weren't actually games. And so I don't think you should be refunding games if you've completed them and enjoyed them. But at the same time, that refund feature, I use that if your game is bad.
See, now, at the same point, I think we have to worry that at some point Steam is going to see people abusing this refund system and just take it away. Do you think there's a possibility that might happen?
I don't. Steam already will lock your account if you refund too much. They'll stop you from being able to refund. So, I think you're good. And they generally seem... I mean, let's face it, Steam's not exactly the company for customer service, but they're also not...
That's a good point.
They're not Comcast and United either, so while they're not the best...
I think there's literally no way to reach them, right? Like, you can put, like, a Steam... You can send them a message on the Steam forum, and that's it.
Pretty much. Yeah, you can use the Steam support for them, and there's also a way in Steam to send them a like message email, and they'll respond to you, but they respond to you in Steam, so it's very confusing. So there you go, guys. That's Conductor. Let us know what you think. Are you a big fan of these Escape the Rooms that are now Escape the World? Should we be calling them Escape the Worlds? I think they're still Escape the Rooms, even if the rooms are moving, but that could just be me. Let us know below. If you like it, like it. If you don't like it, don't like it. Don't forget to check out the Patreon. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like us, if you don't like us, don't subscribe. Why are you even watching? I don't understand. And as always,
We'll see you on the next one.